go back to some basics and share with you some perspectives on what innovation, creativity are really all about. Because I find that when you get 10 innovation experts in a room, and that's already a bit of an oxymoron, and you know, the whole idea that there is a field of innovation is still a bit of a promissory note, you will have probably 6.5 different definitions of what innovation is. So maybe I'm just sharing my own biases, but I feel like my lucky life is about going backstage into literally dozens, hundreds of places where people are on the hook to deliver large-scale, significant innovation agendas, whether it's somebody running the innovation agenda for a country like Finland, or you know, I'm currently advising the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Australia, Denmark. I mean, that's the current national level, but also companies, you know, people who are saying, okay, we buy into the idea that our future is inextricably linked with innovation, whatever that means, right? And now we have to pay off on that. We actually have to do stuff. You know, we can't just use the word like a mantra and dance around in a circle and expect that it's going to happen, right? So I think that that's why, in a sense, I'm trying to set the stage here for what I hope will be a useful, in a way, stepping back to step way forward in terms of the extremely important work that you all are doing in this area. So I want to reflect with you. I actually just have a few simple topics, and I also want to make sure that we have some time for discussion in my precious minutes here. I want to talk just briefly about why it's important. I know that you've heard this before, but you know, I have a few thoughts about that as well. I want to talk a bit more about what is innovation, and then I want to talk about what's happening with innovation in our country. So, you know, hopefully this will give you a bit of a broader context to place a lot of the discussion of the day and the important work that you're doing, so that, you know, you can go out and do the good work of innovation with perhaps a little bit more context or effectiveness. So why the buffalo? Well, I'm really worried about where we are in this country with regard to our innovation agenda, and I don't see it as a narrow, gee, we got to fund science more, or we got to fix our patent system. I see it as a fundamental strategic neglect of how we build the future of this country. And, you know, fortunately, our president has now articulated winning the future starts with innovation. Great. Okay, so President Obama, what do you mean? What are we going to do? What's our strategy? Who's responsible? Where's the money? You know, what's the operating definition? You got 37 people in the federal government with innovation in their title. When do they talk to each other? Is there an overarching narrative? You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what I see, you know, those of you that are anthropology buffs will no doubt recall the notion of revitalization movements, right? In the 1890s, the Indians, Native Americans, exhausted, depleted, stressed out, shoved onto reservations, humiliated. One guy had a dream, right? The dream was, you do this dance, you wear this special buckskin jacket, the buffalo will come back, the invaders will leave, and all will be as it was before. And we know what happened with that story. You know, they all sallied forth with their buckskin jackets, and they were all killed off, and you know, the rest is history. This has happened in cultures under stress repeatedly. Magical thinking, denial, ritualistic behavior. You know, in New Guinea in the World War II, after the cessation of hostilities, some of the tribes in the jungles built DC-3s out of jungle vines and pieces of leftover wood, because they thought if they built replicas of DC-3s, all of those nice Army Air Corps people from the United States would come back with Spam and you know, all the other goodies of the era, and guess what? It didn't happen. We are in a similar situation very often with regard to the rhetoric around the National Innovation Agenda. I cannot tell you how many times I hear, it's fine, we're number one, we always come through, America loves a good come-behind story. You know, 60% of teenagers surveyed in Detroit, I'm told, still believe that they're going to have a job in the car industry. I mean, that was last year's statistic, so it may have gone down some. That's Buffalo, right? That's not reality. Okay, so it's especially a problem because this is what I would refer to as an all bets are off era of history. And it's not just because of the unfortunate incidents in Japan, but Hokusai in the 19th century made this wonderful woodblock print where Mount Fuji, which is the central cultural anchor of Japan, was, you know, not in the middle of the picture, as is the case mostly, but off to the side. And you have these little people here, cowering in boats, helpless to prevent the progress of the Great Wave. So, you know, if we kind of look at that through the lens of disruption, conventional wisdom is being disrupted everywhere. You know, here's Chris Hughes, you know, kind of wise guy, college dropout, Facebook co-founder, Obama's social media advisor. And you know, in any other election cycle, Mrs. Clinton would have won because she ran a classic top-down, on-message, big media campaign. But Mr. Hughes here said, oh no, we're going to get cell phone numbers, we're going to tweet, we're going to personalize, we're going to use what, you know, was 3 years ago's version of social media, and, you know, how things have even changed since. And the rest is history. And, you know, I believe that this is not an exaggeration. You know, Kennedy was the first telegenic president. Remember the debates, some of you? Nixon goes up there and he's a real man, so when they say, do you want makeup? He says, no, no way. Kennedy, you know, went to Harvard. Sure, fine, put it on. And the rest, you know, Nixon starts to sweat. Nixon starts to sweat, right? I am not a crook. You know, Kennedy looked cool and composed. Narrow margin. The rest is history. Obama is the first cybergenic president. And, you know, on that basis, I think, you know, the story about disruption is pretty easy